Have you ever prayed for something so big that people laughed at you? Have you ever believed God for something that even you wondered was possible? This is the story of a man who prayed such a prayer. A prayer everyone said would never be answered. A prayer people mocked, joked about, and whispered behind his back. But it was the prayer that opened the door God had been preparing all along. Daniel was the kind of man people often overlooked. Not because he wasn't smart. Not because he didn't work hard. Not because he lacked talent. People overlooked Daniel because life had fallen on him too many times. He lived in a tiny, quiet room at the back of an old building that smelled of rain and dusty books. Every morning he woke up before the sun, whispered a short prayer, and walked to any job he could find. Sometimes it was cleaning, sometimes carrying boxes, sometimes helping at the market, sometimes fixing little things for people. He earned little, but he gave much. People loved him, but no one really saw him. And that was part of the problem. Daniel had dreams, big dreams, strong dreams, dreams he wished he could scream out loud, dreams he wanted to run after. But every time he tried, life pushed him back down. And the worst part? People reminded him every day, "You? Impossible. You think God cares about that?" Daniel, some doors are not for people like us. He heard it so much that sometimes he believed it, but not always. Inside him, there was still a small flame, a little hope, a quiet belief that God could do more. One cold Monday morning, Daniel received an email. It was from the company he had applied to for the 5th time. He stared at his phone, his heart beating fast. He took a deep breath. He opened the message. "We regret to inform you." He closed his eyes. He already knew the rest. Another rejection, another disappointment, another broken hope. Around him, life continued like nothing happened. Children ran, dog barked, cars passed, people laughed. But inside Daniel, something cracked. He walked slowly to a bench nearby and sat down. His best friend Mark saw him and walked over. "Let me guess," Mark said. "They said no again?" Daniel nodded. Mark sighed. "Dan, listen to me. I care about you, but you need to stop dreaming about that door. Some doors will never open for people like us." Daniel felt that like a punch. He looked down at his hands. He didn't argue. He didn't defend himself. He didn't even cry. He just sat there silently, feeling small. As he walked home, Daniel passed a group of neighbors playing cards outside. One of them laughed loudly and said, "Hey Daniel, did heaven give you that miracle job yet?" More laughter. "So, you're still praying? God must be tired of hearing your voice." They laughed like it was the funniest joke in the world. Daniel forced a smile and kept walking. But when he reached his room and shut the door, he leaned back on it and finally let his tears fall. Not because of the words, but because they echoed what he feared deep inside. Maybe the door he wanted really was impossible. That night, Daniel put his phone aside, turned off the lights, and fell on his knees. No fancy words, no long sentences, just a prayer that came from somewhere deep inside. "God, I'm tired, but I still believe you can open a door for me. Not just any door. The door you want. The door everyone thinks is impossible. If it is your will, open it." When he finished praying, there was no thunder, no angel, no bright light, just silence. A silence so deep. He wondered if his prayer even reached heaven, but he stayed on his knees a little longer, because sometimes prayer is not answered by noise, but by peace. The next day, nothing changed. The day after that, nothing changed. A week later, still nothing. People continued to mock him. Mark continued to warn him. Life continued as before. But every morning, Daniel still whispered, "God, open the door. No one can shut." Some days, his faith felt strong. Other days, it felt as small as a grain of sand. But he kept praying. One afternoon, Daniel heard something that almost broke him. The company he desperately hoped for posted a public announcement. The position has been permanently closed.
People rushed to tell him. Someone said, "See?
We told you." Another said, "Now stop praying for nonsense." Another laughed. Door closed forever. Even God can't open it. Even Mark said, "Dan, it's time to move on." For the first time, Daniel felt truly hopeless. He sat on his small bed and stared at the wall. "This is it," he whispered. "It's really over." But something inside him, something small, something almost invisible, whispered back, "Pray again."
So he did.
With tears running down his face, he said the same prayer. "Lord, if it is your will, open the door everyone said is impossible." He didn't know it, but God was already working. While Daniel prayed in his room, something was happening. In a building miles away, inside a large office, a meeting had just ended. A department manager said, "We need someone trustworthy, someone loyal, someone who will not cheat or lie." Another manager said, "What about that man, Daniel? I remember his interview years ago. He wasn't perfect on paper, but he was honest. And he helped my father that day at the bus stop, without knowing who he was." Another manager added, "That's right. I saw him clean the park once, without being asked. People like that are rare." They all nodded. His name kept coming up, not because of his skills, not because of his degree, not because of his experience, but because of his character. The door he prayed for was opening quietly, silently, gently, and Daniel knew nothing about it. 2 weeks later, on a bright morning, Daniel's phone rang. Unknown number. He almost ignored it. Something told him, "Pick it up." He answered weakly, "Hello." "Good morning," a woman said. "Is this Mr. Daniel?" "Yes. This is the Human Resources Director, from the company you applied to." Daniel froze. His heart raced. The woman continued, "We would like you to come in tomorrow morning for a meeting with our senior team." Daniel swallowed hard. "Ma'am, I thought the position was closed." "Yes," she replied. "That position was closed. We are calling you for a different one." "A different one?" he repeated.
"Yes.
"A higher one." Daniel almost dropped his phone. The next morning, Daniel put on his best shirt, held his Bible in his hand, and walked to the company building. His legs shook. His heart pounded. He felt like a small man in a giant world. But when he entered the room, something strange happened. Every single person smiled warmly at him. The director said, "Daniel, thank you for coming. We've heard wonderful things about you. We've been looking for someone like you. Your honesty impressed us. Your kindness was noticed." Daniel was confused. "How?" he asked. The director replied, "People remember good men, even when you don't see it."
They offered him the job.
On the spot. A position higher than anything he ever imagined. With pay he never dreamed possible. With benefits he never knew existed. Daniel sat there, eyes filled with tears, unable to speak. The director smiled. "Congratulations. This door was waiting for you." Later, Daniel learned the truth. Someone he helped years ago, a tired old man on a rainy day, was actually the father of one of the senior managers. Another person he encouraged when she was crying in the park was now on the HR team. A security guard he used to greet kindly had spoken well of him too. Every small kindness he gave quietly, behind closed doors, was returning to him. Every seed he planted, in silence, was blooming. Every prayer he whispered, in loneliness, was being answered. God had been working, even when the door looked locked. The day he received the official letter, Daniel walked home slowly, with tears running down his cheeks. But these tears were not from pain. They were from gratitude. When he passed the same neighbors who once mocked him, they stared in shock. Someone whispered, "Is that Daniel?" Another said, "I heard he got a job in a high place." Another looked confused. But how? Didn't the position close? Daniel smiled kindly and kept walking. He didn't gloat. He didn't boast. He didn't return the mocking. He simply said in his heart, Thank you, God. You kept your promise. That night, Daniel stood by his little window and looked at the stars. He whispered, God,
You heard me.
even when I doubted, even when others laughed, even when the door looked closed, you opened it. And in that moment, he finally understood something he wished he learned years ago. When God decides to open a door, no human hand can close it. No gossip can block it. No mockery can weaken it. No delay can stop it. The impossible door he prayed for was never impossible for God.
It was simply not time. Until that day.
If life has ever told you that your prayer is too big, remember Daniel. If people have ever laughed at your dreams, remember Daniel. If a door looks locked, remember this. God does not need a key. He is the key.
What is impossible for people
Is simple for God. And the prayer people mock today may become the miracle they can't explain tomorrow. So keep praying. Keep believing.
keep trusting.
Because one day, God will open the door everyone said was impossible, just like he did for Daniel.